In this problem, we're given some information about cosine of A. That's going to be -1/5. And we're given some information about where angle A is going to lie. It's going to be between pi over 2 and pi, which is going to put us in quadrant 2. So let's go ahead and draw our triangle in quadrant 2. And we can go ahead and label our sides. Off our cosine information, our adjacent side here is a -1, and our hypotenuse is a 5. So let's go ahead and use Pythagorean theorem to get our remaining side. So we've got -1 squared and 5 squared. So we're going to get a squared plus 1 equals 25. If we subtract the 1 from both sides, that's going to give us a squared equals 24. So a is going to be the same thing as radical 24. Keep in mind you can break this apart into the square root of 4 times the square root of 6. Right, square root of 4 is 2. And we'll keep the radical 6. Keep in mind we do have a positive or negative when we take that square root. And because we're in quadrant 2, that y value there is going to be something positive. So our last side here is going to be 2 radical 6. So let's go ahead now and take a look at our question. We want to find sine of a over 2. And if we take a look at our half angle formulas, right, this is going to give us positive, negative, square root of 1 minus cosine of A, all of that over 2. So let's go ahead and plug in the information we know. We were given information about cosine of A, right, in our problem, so when we get to that part of our formula, we're going to replace it with that -1/5. So I've got 1 minus a -1/5, all of that over 2. This is going to be the same thing as 1 plus 1/5, for a total of 6 fifths on top. All of that divided by 2. And if you want to go ahead and work with your fraction here to simplify it, keep in mind when you're doing 6 fifths and you're dividing by 2, that's the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal, so multiplying by 1/2. This will give us 6/10 or 3/5 underneath that radical. And now we want to go ahead and deal with our plus-minus piece. Okay, and that's going to go back to information that we were given with regard to the quadrant that we were in. So keep in mind, our value for A is between pi over 2 and pi. Well, keep in mind we were asked to find sine of a over 2, right? And this a value that we originally were working with was in quadrant 2, right? When we go to assign the plus or minus sign, we want to keep in mind what quadrant a over 2 is in. So think of it as we're going to be starting with this information about a, and we're going to divide each of these by 2. And so that's going to give us pi over 4, our a over 2 value in the middle, and pi over 2 on this right-hand side. So this is the same thing as saying a over 2 is between 45 degrees and 90 degrees, which is putting this in quadrant 1. And sine is positive in quadrant 1, So our final answer here, sine of a over 2, is going to equal positive radical 3/5.